No. Okay, while it does that, I'll grab my tea. Oh, I gotta mute it here. Okay, mute it here. Okay. All right, we'll start soon, everybody. Yes. Excitedly, you all await. You await. YouTube people, you be watching. Zoom people, you be joining. All right, let's pin this video and turn on the video. All right. Enjoy the ukulele hanging in the background. Nice touch. That. That. Nice. So people watching in anticipation. What up? Slow. Oh. And time flies. Oh. Okay, well, I'll like it from there too. Check out. And finally, we like it from here. Okay, join Zoom. There you go. Right. All right, let's get it going. Go forward to cloud. Welcome everyone to Enlightened Masculinity Podcast. I'm your host, Yogi Chris, PhD, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, captain of IMC Nation here at IMC Nation Base 1 in Campbell, California. And this is being streamed to YouTube, the IMC TV YouTube. So if you're catching the recording, you can go check out IMC TV YouTube. Lots of IMC guys there. I think 13 other guys, so 14 guys total, I believe, have shows there, each one show per week. And so you'll get a lot of different takes on this, how people have included the philosophy, the ideas of, how we've integrated all of these different things from Stoicism, evolutionary psychology, different Eastern belief systems, Scientology, or L. Ron Hubbard rather, and so many other things. Tao Te Ching, that's Eastern, surrender experiment, Eckhart Tolle, transcendental meditation. Again, that's Eastern, but it's been Westernized for the West. It's made for the West. So a lot of different really cool things. Martial arts, the art of war, influence and persuasion, communication skills, emotional awareness. Lots of different things come together to make this a well-rounded lifestyle. And I'm coming to you from IMC Base 1. We have 5 bases right now and counting, and a lot of people all over the world. I was just working on the map, pins and things where we have different top-level guys. And the world is quite an interesting place. Let's get into it. People, they're like walking around in a daze, in a hallucination. They're in a trance of their own life. And they, every now and then, in my world, which has been my world for, around the last 8 years, but really the last 4 or 5 years, that it's almost like distraction free, like just totally focused on IMC. You may have glimpses of like aha moments. It might be a realization you yourself come to. It might be you read something and it's like, oh, that was mind-blowing. You might watch something, you might listen to a lecture or something, who knows, maybe study something. However, you come to some liberating realization that makes you feel more free, more in control, less confined in your existence. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, then you're at some level of maturity beyond just like 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, or just fresh out of, your parents' house. You might even still be living with your parents, but you've moved on to, okay, like the real world is coming at you, whatever the real world is, the real world that has been designed for us and fed to us that we need to participate in. And everybody's involved in it. It's like a mass conspiracy to like be in this mundane materialistic world. And so you're just surrounded by it. You're like trying to be, you're a prisoner in a giant prison where everybody's a prisoner, and you're trying to be good. You're trying to be enlightened. You're trying to liberate yourself from the dramas of the prison, where like fights are everywhere, night stabbings are everywhere, the food sucks, which is the case of the surface of the planet. And, the wardens are giving you unreasonable rules that you got to follow or you'd be punished. And it's like, man, how do you keep your sincerity and your innocence and your goodness in that kind of environment? This is what we find ourselves on planet Earth. So, those realizations may free you for a moment, but then you snap right back into like, oh, this is my life. Oh, this is what I'm doing. And not in the sense of like you're setting goals and like you feel so ambitious and enthusiastic about it, but more like I have to do this, I have to do that. Dread. You've made a habit out of complaining. You don't even think you're complaining. You're just in a complaint mindset, carrying yourself like a complaint. That's what you see when you see people walking around. Very rare will you see someone like kind of chest up, all happy and proud and like winning and just enjoying their moments. They're often thinking about something and it's a responsibility or trying to solve a problem, and you could see it in their face and maybe looking down, or they might not be facing down, but they're looking out, but their face is like down, their frown is like down, their shoulders are down, they're down, like up. And it's more or less by design. When you say that, sometimes a person might think, well, there's no way that all of these things are by design. I've made so many choices. Like, it's not by design what vehicle I have. I chose that vehicle. Yeah, but the vehicle was designed. It's not by design. Let's say my finances, how I spend my money. Yeah, but the money system was by design. Taxes is by design. So it's kind of like an ecosystem. You could design an ecosystem, but you're not going to be able to choose which direction every tree grows and what areas of grass are thicker or short. You're not going to be able to decide like where the bugs go or where the birds fly, but you can design an ecosystem. You can control some inputs, some water inputs, some seeds. You could plant different kinds of seeds that will fast forward 50, 100 years, the ecosystem would be totally different if you planted a bunch of exotic seeds or some invasive that just take over, like weeds or whatever. Certain things like fire ants was an invasive species that's not native to America. It came from South America, and they totally displaced native ant. And that may not seem like anything. It's at the bottom of this pyramid called, the trophic chain, not the food chain, the trophic chain. And it's similar to the food chain. And, invasive species could do that. So the ecosystem, you wouldn't even know that it was by design because it was set up like 50, 100 years earlier. And then you let nature do its thing. But you could even like dig a ditch and it rains there and it becomes a creek. And 100 years later, you wouldn't know that creek was by design. It seems like that's how it's been. It's eroded the walls. You when you first dug it out, it looked like man-made. It was straight lines but give it 100 years of like erosion and crumples and everything, and you might not be able to tell that it was by design. And that's what we have with culture. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of years. We're piling on new rules. Some rules go outdated, but we don't let them go. Some rules, we just kind of let them go. And it doesn't seem like, it seems like an organic thing. No, it's by design that you stay suppressed. There's lots of old stories and old religious scriptures and whatever. And that's what we have to go on. Like, we don't have writings that are 8,000 years old that are not considered religious to someone, because that's amazing. Your ancestors 8,000 years ago, how many generations is that? That's like 4 or 5 generations per century. So it's 40 or 50 generations per millennia. So like 8,000 years ago is like 300 generations. It's like great. It's like so long ago that, yeah, if I had some writing from my family 8,000 years ago, and it was like, that was the De Vilbius's 8,000 years ago, whatever that means, that would be hella holy to me. I would, fuck yeah, that's like the religion that, because I am the successor of that. I'm alive because whatever ideas that were victorious. They survived. They won. So many didn't win. We don't realize how many people have died without offspring and their genetics just go away. They're done for. We are the winners. And so whatever, and it was so costly and expensive and difficult to write something down in the past, especially thousands of years ago before like paper. You have to carve it into a rock or something, or in a tablet, or so much effort. I'll be typing right now super fast and I'll make a mistake and backspace, retype it. Oh, I misspelled that. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm going to reword that. Blah, blah, blah. Like, you can't do that when you're carving something in a stone, Oh, fuck, let's go back and like redo that letter. So it was well thought out. Whatever they wrote doesn't mean it was right. It just means that it was well thought out. They put in their time, and those ideas survived to some extent if through their offspring. So we hold it religious, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily like the truth. I'm just saying that's what their ideas were. And a lot of the ideas from so many cultures, you go back in the past, is people lived longer. Like a lot longer. Hundreds of years. What if you were to live hundreds of years? The thing about the truth and reality versus Maya, or this illusion, this big, great, grand illusion, this big theater that we're caught in. When you watch a movie or a play, if you've ever watched a play, if it's good or you're into it, you forget who you are, where you're at, not in a kind of some kind of psychotic or mentally disabled kind of way. It's a distraction. You're distracted from your life. You forget, like if you're during intimacy with another person, or even like on drugs, or just the bliss or excitement of some situation, time flies. You forget you're in it, experiencing it, but you're not thinking, oh, what's this, and I was born here and whatever. It's not that I'm thinking about that now necessarily, but again, I'm like distracted by this podcast. I'm entertained by my own podcast, and so I get wrapped up into the illusion of what I'm seeing and kind of forget myself. And that's like a theater or a movie. A good movie, you're watching it and you're like, you're not here's an example. If you had an ache or a pain in your body, or a stomach ache, or injury or something, if you're really in a good show, you forget about the pain. You forget about the tummy ache sometimes. Like, versus you even be watching a bad show, and then you'll really start to see, because it's not entertaining, you'll really feel the tummy ache or the injury or whatever. But the good show, it pulls your attention into it, and you're totally caught up in that illusion, even if just for glimpses, 5 seconds here, a minute there. Good movie keeps your attention the whole time. From the very beginning, it's like, whoa, that's a great opening scene, and you're just like in it, anticipating and waiting for the next scene. That's how most people's lives are to them. They've actually forgotten themselves, and they're caught up in the illusion and theater of their life. And that's what the world is. The world is a big theater, like Shakespeare said. It's just a huge, many billions of people theater with billions and billions and billions of animals and different creatures. And, the stage is the whole surface of the earth. So there's like wind, how like you'd be on a theater stage and they'd have a fan off to the side and blowing it to mimic wind, or they'd have some piece of like sheet metal or whatever that they make it sound like thunder. They rock it or something. It's like we have wind and we have thunder and things that make it seem like it's storming. It's storming outside, but is it storming inside? People, you forget what's happening. You forget the truth that you're watching a movie, that these are actors when you're engaging in life. They're just pretending. Magic Man's pretending to be Magic Man. Ranger's pretending to be Ranger. Tony Kosminski's pretending to be Tony Kosminski. I am not Yogi Chris. I say that to communicate to you all so you can locate me. It's like, oh, who's talking? I don't even really need to say that if you know me, because the sound of my voice and other things will indicate who I am. But new audience, and I label myself so you can refer to me. It facilitates communication, but we get so wrapped into it. Just like the movie facilitates a message. It facilitates a meaning or a story that you get. But you may forget that there's a meaning and a story too. You get so wrapped up into it like it was truth, or maybe you don't do that for movies so much unless you're watching a documentary or something and you think it's truth, but that's what we're doing with life. And so the thing about the truth versus this veil of illusion that we've inherited, that we're born into and indoctrinated into, is that how do I explain this? I don't know how to explain this succinctly, so I'll just kind of go into it, describing it. Like the lies, the falsehoods that make up reality are so many. They're so numerous because I know there's an analogy right on the tip of my mind here. It's kind of like, okay, if you've ever solved a puzzle, where you like put pieces together to make the picture. And if you've ever put a wrong piece in place, because it was almost like close enough. It seemed so close that you just kind of smashed it in a little bit, with a little extra force. Depending on the picture, how complicated the puzzle is, it may sort of do for the time being. Like maybe it's a blue sky and you fit the blue puzzle piece right there. And it's like blue, it's the same shade of blue. It's not exactly the right fit. Eventually, it's going to create a problem somewhere else in the puzzle because you've taken the place of one piece and the piece is now missing over there. And so you've created another problem. So you take this other piece and smash it in there. Well, that creates another problem because then that's missing a piece. It's missing the space where it belongs. And so when you start putting the lies together, it is displacing a truth. And so that'll be a loose end somewhere else in life that they have to make another lie for. Otherwise, you'll pull on the loose end and the sweater comes undone. So they have to keep patching up all the loose ends of the veil that they've given us so that we are sufficiently satisfied that it doesn't look peculiar enough. For example, the pyramids, that's a loose end. They can't explain that with human evolution. So they just kind of write it up as like, well, we just don't know how they did it yet. We'll figure it out eventually. And don't worry, but the rest of human evolution is true. Monkeys evolved into standing up and evolved into this and that. And eventually here we are. Right. Never mind all the other megalithic structures, they call it. Lith is like a Latin for rock. Mega is huge. So huge rock structures, megalithic structures, giants that cranes couldn't lift today, but somehow they were moved uphill, 18,000 years ago with like perfectly straight laser cut lines in them. But like dude, we don't have tools to do that now, or it's like the most advanced tools. And it's like, they did that with chisels back then. Like, what kind of technology did they have back then? Because I don't remember anywhere in human history. It'd be one thing if they said humans evolved an advanced civilization 18,000 years ago, but then a devastation happened and everybody went back to the Stone Age and we forgot all that technology. But, at least be honest about that. Okay, we don't have the technology, but Atlantis existed. Okay, so there was advanced technology back then, but they don't say that. They say from monkeys until now, and it's like, bro, dude, that's a loose end that you just kind of got to brush under the rug and hope people don't ask too many questions, but they are asking questions, and that's why we're in the period of disclosure now. Disclosure is happening, Age of Aquarius. Armageddon, the great revealing. So many lies, and this is the problem, or a very big obstacle when you're learning the truth about things. And there's so many truths. Like, I go into truths about so many things. Like, they maybe can be synthesized into a few categories. Governmental truth, they all relate to each other. The truth about governments, that governments have a monopoly on force, and that's basically all a government is. A government is a monopoly on force, and they can enforce other rules depending on whatever their preferences are, because the population has allowed a few to have a monopoly on force and get away with it. They can use force to get their way without punishment. That's government. That's what it is. And on a more esoteric sense, government is leading your mind. That's what governmente means. To lead mind, government. All right. So there's the truth about the truth about the monetary system. Like, they're just printing it and it's deflating everybody, but it's being funneled to their friends. And so they get the purchasing power of the new counterfeit dollars while everybody else's savings decreases in value. Inflation, like, and it represents something, and there's nothing backing it. Like, it used to represent gold, which had a real use because it's conductive and it doesn't rust and it's malleable and it's a metal and it's precious and it looks pretty. It's aesthetic. So it has some real value. Paper money doesn't. Digital money doesn't. And it doesn't equate to how much gold there is. It's not backed by anything. It's just an agreement that this is worth something. It's monopoly money. That's the truth about money. And as long as everybody agrees, then it can still purchase something. But when certain people don't agree, then then you got to shut them up, because if enough of them happen, then you're going to have an overturning of the monetary system. And that's going to be a big chaos. Then what happens? That you study human history for that. And I say human history is all false, and it is, but there's also human history has happened. Like, we could go back 20 years ago and watch the news and see what happened, or read a book, or go into the event. We can't go back like in time travel right now, supposedly. The commoners can't. But what I'm saying is, like, for example, my dad has a huge National Geographic collection. He's like big fan of National Geographic. He's got like every issue except like 5 of them, which is incredible. And he's like, sometimes if you go back and you read these magazines from like 1890 or 1910 or something, they're actually more accurate than what you hear now, because the narrative has changed about the destruction of jungles or species or whatever. So if you go back to closer to when the event happened, you'll actually get a more accurate accounting of it. If you listen to a summary now, 110 years later, they're going to have some agenda in it that's going to manipulate your view. You wouldn't even know you're hearing a lie. So in that sense, there is real human history. Like, we actually have a history. It's just, it's all pieces and fragmented in different places, and some of it's probably lost. And so we piece it together because we draw power from it. So what am I saying about the history, lies? So, there's so many lies. So the government, money, religion, the truth about religion, what happened with Jesus, what's going on with Jesus, with Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, this or that. That goes back way far, but then go more recently, and like what has happened to all the churches and, the power structure of the planet. Like, the Illuminati is real. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to get hacked and censored right now. The elite families of the planet that had so much money and resources with sinister, nefarious agendas, evil agendas, that gradually bought out authority and buying power, bought out voting power and just regular power in different powerful organizations. Over time, like I'm telling you, it whittles away, just like by design, and we plant some seeds, and then 100 years later, you see a jungle has grown, and you wouldn't even know that those are not natural. Who put those there? Those seeds come from across the planet. There's no way that naturally that was there. You need to be very educated to know that. If you're just looking at it, it looks pretty. The trees grew like that. How is it by design? How is the the cabal, the one world government that's a shadow government underneath the regular government that has players, dark players, evil players that are placed in the Vatican, in the Church of Scientology. That's why people think Scientology is a cult. Not only did the CIA come in and tell you it's a cult, but then they infiltrated the church with a bunch of nefarious people. Just like every church, just like Buddhism, like the Dalai Lama, I just posted on my social media, he's kissing the tongue of a young child and he's laughing about it like, what kind of ass backwards? That's not the culture of Tibetan Buddhism. Buddhists don't do that. That's something else. I'm not saying that a documentary from 20 years ago with the Dalai Lama, that's the same Dalai Lama. You think they don't clone humans? Really? Really? There's so many shadow operations that you don't know about, and so many evil people in the world. It's not like half the world. It's maybe like 5%. But if you were evil, you would hide your intent and you would attain power so that you could protect your evilness and you could keep doing that. That's what will happen. And then the cabal is built on blackmail and misdeeds, catching people on out ethics. So you catch them on out ethics, you blackmail them into doing more out ethics so they don't get caught, and gradually they become an evil person. And in the interest of keeping their money, which was hundreds of thousands of times greater than the commoner hundreds of years ago in the Dark Ages, when the Renaissance is happening, okay, well, now they control the printing press and they're going to control this ecosystem by planting some seeds in the beginning so that 400 years later, we don't even know that they did that. And so the great families of the world, the rich families of the world, control these organizations, media outlets. I mean, you could see any documentary like Fall Cabal or something where like 83 media outlets got distilled down to 4 or 5 over like 25 years. Like there were 80 different media outlets in America, and now it's down to 4. 4 companies own them all. And if you look at the owners of those companies, charged with pedophilia, colluded with the Clintons, who have like 60 assassinations with them, like that's all of them. They're controlling the narrative that you're hearing and that your parents are hearing. So now we have this disillusionment. We don't trust them. So that's like government, what's happening in the world. What about mating? That's what I talk about in Enlightened Masculinity. Men and women, the agenda of men and women and the truth about it has been lost. We're in an illusion. One man, one woman. That's the thing to do. Marriage, that's the thing to do. Or hoe yourself around and be polygamous and polyamorous and just free love. And that becomes another thing that they're pushing. Anything to get you off of tribalism. Because tribalism would make you strong. Tribalism has a hierarchy. Follow the strong alpha, which will lead you to prosperity. There's a reason why he's alpha, or he'll be beaten out in competition by another alpha, either within the tribe or from outside another tribe. And essentially, I mean, it's kind of like tribalism. Corporations are tribes. The Illuminati, the families, those are tribes. That's a family. They're just using a lot of mental warfare and illusions so that you're misguided and misdirected. And that's how they control the population of 9 billion people. That's how 400 people control 9 billion people. There's just no other way. And so the human history, seeing the interference of extraterrestrials on our genetics, tampering with it, hybridizing their own genes into it, why we turned hairless so fast, why we turned big brain so fast before the advent of tools even. And that plays a role in why our lifespan has reduced. And what if? It makes sense, I tell you, as I do transcendental meditation and settle my mind, as I study L. Ron Hubbard's writings and I resolve my mind. See, the transcendental meditation calms you down and reduces stress. You release stress. You don't realize how excited your nervous system is. Like I know this after jujitsu, and I'll come back and it's like, man, even though I've cooled down, I stretched, I took a cold shower, I drove home, I ate something so I feel like I'm calm. It's like you do your meditation, man, I'm still holding here and I'm holding here and I got to keep letting it go. And it's like, man, my head is far, like there's tension in my neck. My tongue is still gripping, eyes, this and that. And you settle down. And it's like, I created all this tension in my body that I have to resolve later. If I didn't fight and I just did meditation all the time, I'd keep calming down. But that may not suit you well in your life because you have to solve problems in your life, and relationships is not the best for relationships to just be like a ball of putty. You got to have some firmness, some tension about things, stand for things. So as I release tension and traumas and whatever, excitation, unconscious gripping in my nervous system, you see more clearly. You see that the tension is clouding what you're seeing, how you're perceiving your mind, how you're perceiving the situation, what happened, how you're perceiving what things mean. The meaning of things, the meaning of situations and life circumstances, the meaning of your life to you changes when you calm down and release stress. It's amazing. You literally see different. It's like you go to the eye doctor and they put one lens and they're like, which one's better, left or right? It's like that. You have stress, it's one lens. You remove the stress, it's another lens. Remove more stress, it's another lens. Get angry, it's another lens. Be happy, it's another lens. Be sad, it's another lens. And the lens is, it's in your mind and you're behind your mind, but you are stuck to your mind, just like people are stuck to human history and they think they know, and so they don't look for anything better. And so we think we know the situation because we haven't separated from the mind. And I had already done that, and that's why transcendental meditation took easily to me naturally. And doing that, releasing stress, I see more clearly. Combined with the writings of L. Ron Hubbard, which is the science of the mind. Meditation is also the science of the mind, but L. Ron Hubbard's writings is going into it, you could almost say, in a reductionist way. Reductionist versus holistic. Holistic is go backwards and let everything come together. Reductionist is go into it and solve each thing piece by piece. Both are kind of needed. Holistic seems appealing because you don't have to learn so much. However, you also are not good at playing the game of life if you just do that. If you just zoom out and let everything integrate together, you're still going to have issues with relationships with family, with the opposite sex, or your partners or whatever, with success with money or whatever. You're going to need some, how do you navigate this world? Language, all that stuff. If you just do reductionist, then you may not achieve the holistic point of view that you would get from going backwards. And so you'll lose the forest for the trees. You'll be focusing on the trees and not know the forest. But if you just focus on the forest, you don't know what species of trees there and how the wildlife get along there. You got to zoom out and zoom in. You need both perspectives, in my opinion, where I'm at in my evolution. So as I understand more my mind and these lenses that come over it due to language and different intense sensations in my past and how I was conditioned, combined with transcendental meditation, with sheds layers of unconscious gripping, consciously shedding unconscious gripping. And I'm doing both of these activities as I move forward in life. Meanwhile, I'm feeding my mind disclosure information, red pill information, conspiracy theory information, not holding it as truth, but holding it as mind-expanding entertainment, which seems to have truths in it that resonate with me. One of which is that the genetics of humans have been fiddled with over tens of thousands of years by different extraterrestrial races. And in particular, our lifespan had been reduced by some nefarious extraterrestrial races, because they're not just like benevolent beings, which means like good, all good beings, just because they can fly through space, and reduced our life to suppress our spiritual evolution, to further keep us suppressed. Why? Because they benefit for so many reasons. What? That's the thing. Remember when I told you that the veil has so many loose ends. The problem is when you pull one string, it just starts unraveling. So I answer one question, it brings up two others. Which species? For what reason? If I told you a species and told you a reason, you'd have more questions. Why that species? Or why did they decide to do that? And you start asking all these, and at some point I'd be like, I don't know. And you'd be like, see, you don't know. That's why that's not true. This other thing is true because I know why taxes are. I know why religion is good. I know Dalai Lama is good. I know Hollywood is good. I know liberalism is good. That's what a liberal thinks. They think that all those things are good. They think that the people that think it's not good are bad. Whereas the other people think that they're not bad because they're liberal. They're not bad because they're the Dalai Lama. They're not bad because they're the church. They're bad because they kiss kids and they promote pedophilia and they're enslaving the planet. Like, that's what it is. So the lifespans of humans been reduced so that we stay ignorant. Because if you by design, originally, whether that was through evolution or the divine intervention or whatever the fuck, ETs came and expanded our lifespan, hybridized us with chimpanzees, essentially, that share 99% of our genes, and they only live to be 8 years old or 20 years old or whatever, but put in their ET DNA. There was this concept in Star Trek called a Dyson sphere. The Dyson sphere was where you put a shield. I don't know what it's made of, maybe metal or something, but you encase a sun, a star, so that you can harness all the energy of that star. And you can actually transport the star around the galaxy or the universe or something using the energy of the star to do whatever. So you harness all the energy. It's huge when you think about the size of a star, and then you would need to encase that in a bigger sphere of metal. Like, that's just unreal. And then you get why they have all these mining operations where they're mining planets and moons and just taking material from all over the galaxy to make these Dyson spheres. And they said to make it takes 200,000 years. And it's made from these ETs that live for like 250,000 years. That's the lifespan of these certain ET race or whatever. I don't know if it's true. That's, by the way, all that stuff I just said, it takes 200,000 years and ETs, whatever. That's from the Red Pill movement. The Dyson sphere was a concept in Star Trek that I saw like 20 years ago. And then recently in the last year, I saw this Dyson sphere in Cosmic Disclosure. And I'm like, what the fuck? Maybe, did they just take that from Star Trek? Or does Star Trek take that from there? You see a lot of things in Cosmic Disclosure that are like, I saw that on Babylon 5. I saw that on Total Recall. I saw that on Matrix. I saw that on War of the Worlds. I saw that on Aliens versus Predator. Jesus, I saw that on Terminator. I saw that on RoboCop. I saw that on fucking fuck. I saw that on Dragon Ball Z even. You're just like, what the hell? And, so this Dyson sphere thing, why was I saying? So some ETs live very, very, very long. Okay, that I get it. If the universe is even 13 billion years and our solar system is only 4 or 5, 6 billion years, there are quite possibly some ETs that have really evolved very highly, probably integrated nanotechnology into them beyond what we even understand, maybe even became energy frequencies. They may even be able to shift their mind and pull their mind out of an organic body and put it into an android body. So the android doesn't have physical tissue. It lives forever as long as you repair the wiring or whatever, but it has an organic consciousness in it. I mean, is that so fantastic to think that 10,000 or 100,000 or 1,000,000 years from now, we would figure something like that out? 1 billion years from now? Jesus, what would we figure out? So some ETs may live very, 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 very long compared to us. And they infuse their genes and make us live, let's say 800 years. Let's say if we were by design of ETs to live 800 years, but then another evil ET race comes in and wants to suppress and subjugate the planet because they literally feed off of negative emotion and they feed off of people and they need people to stay ignorant. Like if we had a bunch of human slaves, we wouldn't want to educate them. We'd want to keep them dumb, so that even when they're adults, they have the education of a 3-year-old, just barely able to talk, so I can give them instructions. We don't want them to know about the world. We wouldn't be able to enslave them. That's what a species that wanted to enslave another species would do, keep them dumb. Don't let them read and write. Or if you give them reading and writing, make it wrong. Give them wrong words. Make it confusing. Give them slang. Give them homophones where words mean multiple things, how they sound. They mean different things. It's like, that's confusing. Good morning. Morning. Weekday. Week? It's a weekday? It's a weekend? Have a good weekend. What are you doing this week? Shit, I'm getting weaker the more I say it. By design. Remember, by design. So if humans were designed to live 600, 700, 800 years, take your age right now. You'd be a baby. You'd be so undeveloped. I can tell from my transcendental meditation, sometimes I imagine myself very old. Or I imagine myself, we all have the expectation that we're going to die 80, 90, 100, whatever age. You have somebody, you don't really expect that you're going to live to be 250. You don't expect it. You might hope for it. You might strive for it, but you don't really, like, gun to your head, you don't really believe it. You believe you'll live to be 70, 80, 90, 60, who knows? In my meditation, in the trance of my meditation, I expect to live to be 800. And when I do that, I really feel like I'm such a kid right now. I'm 36. Compared to 800, that would be like being 3.6 years old to an 80-year-old. If we lived to be 80, I'd be a baby right now, a young kid. And yet I'm so smart, so clever. I have a PhD, all this education. Look at all these sophisticated words I'm throwing at you. Man, if I live to be even 200, after studying self-help for 8 years, I'm fucking incredible compared to the zombies of the planet. Everybody's a zombie. Every neighbor I have, my family members, all of them, more or less, on some gradient, they're zombified. If I live to be 250, continuing studying self-help, language, practicing meditation, oh my God, diet, nutrition, holy fuck. Dude, my ability to relate with people. Now, it's different if I go and live in the mountain to be 250, then I become less able to relate with people, but I still may get better at meditation. But if I'm on a succeeding process right here, I'm on a winning process, I just keep going up. And I'm not going up just on like income because I'm raising in the ranks of my corporation or whatever that I work for. I'm going up in self-awareness, an ability to handle more complicated or challenging situations, confronting life, getting what I want, which doesn't necessarily mean manipulating or influencing people so much as it may be what I want is to get along with so-and-so. And so I listen better. And you could call that manipulation or influence, but I have better self-control, awareness, wisdom, knowledge of cause and effect, so I don't make mistakes. Imagine I live to be 300. Fuck. 600, I'd be so wise. Even as the world changes, I would keep up with it. Assuming I'm not like just old and wrinkled and decrepit, but I'm living to be 300. I mean like living, like expand the lifespan so that I don't get old until I'm 600 and I don't die until I'm 800. I would be such a infant retarded baby right now, thinking I'm all clever. That's how an alien species would suppress the planet, modify the genes, so it reduces their lifespan. So they're designed to develop to be 800. My brain's not yet developed. I'm not able to conceive. A 3-year-old is not able to conceive of the concepts that a 50-year-old can conceive of. But you say, well, when we turn 60, 70, 80, our brains start undeveloping. They start going backwards. Yeah, that's because of how the genes are, so they turn into senescence, but also how the planet is with how we've cultivated crops and food, and there's so many poisons that accumulate up the food chain. So we eat some tuna fish and it's filled with mercury. But if we ate some seaweed, it wouldn't have as much mercury. But then it's less dense with calories and nutrition. So we'd have to eat fucking hay bale worth of seaweed to get everything we need. And they keep denuding the landscape, stripping it, raping it of the good soil, and putting chemical fertilizers that have so much radium in it, but no copper. We need copper, but it doesn't have copper because the chemistry, they didn't make the chemical fertilizer to have every micro nutrient. You need gold. You need uranium in your body. You need everything in certain proportions. The world had self-organized to be in balance until we came in with our clever ideas and, to get advantage. And we gave ourselves advantage, but at what cost? And then over time, we forgot that we raped the landscape and we just thought of that as natural. And I'm not saying go back to the Stone Age. I'm just saying, let's disclose this information, see that there's truth. And you have to find the truth. You have to answer so many lies. At some point, you start realizing you don't need all the answers. In fact, you don't really hardly need any answers, except that you're a soul witnessing this experience. Enjoy. Suffering is a choice. Or maybe suffering is inevitable. Struggling is a choice. Okay. Well, I have more things, but the podcast has already gone long, so I think that's probably good. Hopefully that was entertaining for you. Now, what would be, I would want you to benefit also in some way, like actionable, this isn't like, this is education, it's entertainment, but it's not, this isn't a personal coaching program or what have you. It ends up being what it is because that's the lineage here. So of course I'm dispensing value. So you get value, you want to come back and you want to get more involved. Whoever you are at whatever level you're capable of. So I don't really have an actual step. Dive into the red pill stuff. Look up some red pill stuff. I came across a pretty good red pill video this morning. It was just like a 6-minute showcase of this black guy from Chicago who it was clever how they titled it. He said he accidentally red pilled himself about the BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, where he had been brought up, to distrust white people. And, he ended up becoming an advocate of BLM, and he came out in California in like 2018 or something. And he was doing that. And then during COVID, then he came across this account on Instagram that was talking about Black people or whatever, Black history, this and that. And he was intrigued, but he wanted to disprove them. So he was researching their videos to disprove their videos. So he was making all the talking points. And at some point he realized, oh, I believed a lie. Like he inadvertently educated himself on the channel's videos. And then he just dove into it during COVID because people had like a year or 2 years to just dive into conspiracies. And they were like, and then he was like, man, I bought a whole lie. Like the Black Lives Matter movement is just a whole farce. It's the strong arm. It's the violent terroristic arm of communism, of communist agenda, of communist, what do you call them? When you sponsor a politician, basically funding agent, like they pay donors or whatever. Somehow, basically, the people that finance politicians, like campaigns and whatever, like those kinds of what is the name? This word is very obvious. If I said it, it would be perfect, but it was right there on the tip of my mind. Oil interests and pharmaceutical interests and different farmers and unions, and they have whatever. Basically, that's what BLM is. Lobbyists. Yeah, maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Lobbyists. Yeah, different communist lobbyists. I don't think that was the word I'm looking for, but maybe I don't even know the word I'm looking for. So that was pretty great to see that. And, you show that to certain people and they would think he's brainwashed or whatever. He said all the same arguments. So where do we go? I think moving forward, educate yourself, learn how to communicate so that you're not injuring yourself in communication with other people, especially loved ones and people close to you, so that you do your best to bring them along, but ultimately they may or may not go with you. Like we all have blocks to certain information. 2 years ago, I was less able to accept the ET agenda. 4 years ago, I was less able to accept different agenda. 8 years ago, I was less able to accept the, sexual psychology and male-female agenda. 10 years ago, I was less able to accept that 9/11 was probably an inside job because they planted the passports of the airline pilots. How do you pick up these paper passports when the whole jet engine and the whole airplane incinerated in the jet fire, but somehow the passports of the pilots were found in the rubble? That's like the pyramids. That's like, wait, everything kind of made sense until that, and then that part, you're pushing that part. I don't think. And when you start unraveling that, it's like the whole thing just doesn't make sense. But you got to totally re-educate yourself. People don't have time to do that. That's the matrix. That's where they've got you all wrapped up in shit that's not as important as the truth. And the truth isn't even as important as self-awareness. The truth just helps set you free from the lies so that then you can start focusing on what's important, which is your own evolution through all of this. Not, as I read in a book, he called it was very interesting, not the trivia of your generation. You have a bunch of trivia of your generation. You have a bunch of trivia of your culture. That has nothing to do with you. That's your mind. Okay? Subscribe to IMC TV YouTube channel. Subscribe to this podcast, Enlightened Masculinity, on all the platforms. Leave a review, leave a comment. All that participation is very helpful. Get involved with IMC Nation, imcbase1.com. The link is in the description.